All right, looking ahead to Friday night action. The USC Trojans will try to punch their ticket against the team that punched them out earlier in the year. See what I did there? No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, SC, what a year. And just a phenomenal season in Lincoln Riley's first year. It's the first 11-1 start since 2008. And they started 11-1 that year. They finished 12-1, of course. They beat Penn State there in the Rose Bowl. So it's been a while since SC has had a season like this. It's been amazing. Lincoln Riley's 11 wins ties for the most by a USC head coach in his regular season debut. Howard Jones, he also had 11 back in 1925. Who doesn't remember that? And John Robinson did it back in 1976. So SC has had a historically great season, even by their incredible standards. What a fun season to follow. We all know that it's really going to come down to whether or not Caleb Williams plays at his best. He is likely to win the Heisman Trophy. Through 12 games, he's been ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous this year. 44 total touchdowns accounted for. He broke the school record of 41 previously set by Matt Barkley and Cody Kessler, who did so in 2011 and 2014, respectively. He also has over 4,000 yards of total offense on the season, which is second most ever, compared to Sam Darnold back in 2017. So he has done an insanely great job already this year, and they've already played, right? Utah beat USC earlier in the season. You could make a case that that was as good of a performance as Caleb Williams has had all season. He was 25 of 42 in the performance, 5 touchdowns and nearly 400 yards. His total QBR that night was over 91. So yes, they lost, but it certainly wasn't his fault. If you look at just what he did, engineering an offense that had 556 total yards and still coming up short by scoring 42 points, certainly wasn't the offense's fault. But when you look at what he had around him that night, Travis Dye was a factor in that game. He obviously will not be available here in the Pac-12 championship. The good news is Austin Jones has certainly found his way into the mix and becoming, for lack of a better word, a dominant playmaker, a guy that matters so much to what USC does offensively and creating balance for who they've become. Of course, he's coming off of a career-high 154 rushing yards just last week against a Notre Dame team that's pretty dang solid for the most part against the run. So when you look at what Austin Jones has blossomed into, yes, they don't have Travis Dye. He was good in the performance last time around, but guess what? That was a night in which Austin Jones only had 4 carries. Expect that number to grow exponentially here in the second matchup of the regular season. The last time around, SC had a couple of receivers go over 100 yards. They had Mario Williams and Addison. Both went for 145 and 105 respectively. Addison had the touchdown. And not to be outdone, Fallow, the fullback, H-back, what have you, he had a couple touchdowns as well. So it's really going to be interesting to see how much of USC's offensive plan is going to center around what they did last time around and what they had success with last time around against the Utes. Now, looking at how they attacked them last time, you're going to probably, this time around, probably see Caleb Williams be a little bit more improvisational. That's just who he's become these last couple of weeks. Not that he never had that. I mean, he had that obviously throughout the course of the year. But if you look at his off-schedule plays, first of all, they're impossible to defend. Second of all, he's almost done them almost at a significantly higher clip the last couple of weeks than he had at the early point of the season. Was staying within the offense a little bit more early on. Now those unscheduled, those off-schedule, those improvisational plays have become a bigger part of his game, which makes him all the more difficult to defend. Offensive line, looking back at where they were when they teed it up the last time around. Remember, this was the 7th game of the season when they played last time, so they've played 5 since. I think the offensive line's about the same as they were last time around. They did fine. I wouldn't say it was a great performance by any stretch of the imagination. They gave up 4 sacks in the game, but part of that was because Utah did make some secondhand sacks. They didn't just completely get destroyed in protection and Utah was just blowing and going. There were some pressures that they didn't account for, some secondary pressures they didn't account for, and they caught USC off guard from time to time. that is going to be paramount for SC to make sure they're really good with their mic identifications, make sure that they're really good when it comes to their running backs and their offensive line being on the same page. And also Caleb, to a certain extent as well, he's got to know, man, there has to be that internal clock that goes off from time to time, especially when playing against a team like Utah that's not afraid to throw the kitchen sink at you. Last time they had 4 guys register sacks, several of which were actually in the secondary, including one in particular that you might find a little bit interesting. That's right, Cam Phillips, he had a sack in the game. He's a corner. So they're bringing corner cats in that one as well. So when you look at everything, that's going to be very important for USC to make sure they're very good in protection. For Utah, they need their senior quarterback in Cam Rising to play the best game of the season. He did so against SC the last time, threw for 415 in the game against the Trojans. And what's most important, 0. He threw 0 interceptions against the Trojans. That's massive because if you look at USC, they have prided themselves all season long on creating and forcing turnovers. Utah didn't keep a clean sheet in this game the last time around. They had a fumble and they lost a fumble, but they didn't turn it over more than that. Just 1 turnover in the game. That was one of the lower points for SC, it seems like, on the season. So Utah did a great job of being smart with the football, being doubled over the football when carrying it, and they didn't put the ball on the deck but that one time, and USC did pounce on it, but ultimately it didn't make a huge difference. Cam Rising is going to have to continue to do that. And Cam Rising was their leading rusher in the game as well. Had 11 carries for 60 yards, including 3 touchdowns. You also remember the 2-point conversion, critical 2-point conversion. How'd they score it? Quarterback run. So they're going to have to be really smart when they're rushing the quarterback. There were several different occasions when SC came after Cam Rising, and they were aggressive and pinning their ears back and trying to penetrate, and Cam Rising, being as crafty as he is, being able to kind of buy a little time and finding a way to escape. I would expect Alex Grinch to make sure that there's at least one spy on Cam Rising at all times. He is their best football player. He will make plays. There is no denying that. And if they don't account for him, it's going to be significant. Another guy they need to account for as well is Dalton Kincaid. The guy the last time around was uncoverable. 16 catches for 234 and a touchdown. That's right. 16 catches, 234, and a touchdown. Y'all, we're talking about a tight end here. That's right. A tight end, a volume guy. You have got to. If you're USC on defense, you have to find an answer for Dalton Kincaid. He's going to get his looks. He's going to get his matchups. There's going to be plenty of situations in which he's going to create separation because of the amount of options that he has and the feel that he has for the position. But when you get in the red zone, when the field starts to condense, you better double cover Dalton Kincaid. If he's not double covered, I don't feel USC has done their job. That is of the highest priority because he's the one guy that I know without a shadow of a doubt that can beat me. Other guys that need to be accounted for, they have several solid wide receivers. They're going to spread the ball around. There's no doubt. But Kincaid is without question the guy you need to be paying attention to. And then finally, you must, if you're USC, you absolutely must maintain your composure in this game. Utah is a team in this particular situation that has nothing to lose. Utah learned the mistake a few years back. Remember, Utah was a game away from punching their ticket to the college football playoff. This was 3 or 4 years ago. All they had to do was win in the Pac-12 championship, and they were in. Unfortunately for them, they lost in that Big 12 championship game, and it really wasn't that competitive. It was back when Justin Herbert and the Oregon Ducks were able to knock them off. So remember, Utah has been on the other side of this. They learned from that experience, and they went out last year, even though a playoff spot wasn't on the line, they went out last year and left no doubt in the Pac-12 championship game. It is going to be of the highest priority for USC to compartmentalize the pressure, knowing they're going to get the opponent's best shot who has absolutely nothing to lose. Compartmentalize the pressure and make sure that they're the attacker, not the one that's defending being attacked. If USC can stay aggressive, If USC can continue to empower their quarterback, and if USC can continue to be really good when it comes to taking care of the football like they have all year long, they will win. But if USC uncharacteristically puts the ball on the deck, if they uncharacteristically throw interceptions, and if Utah, the team that's been in this situation on several different occasions in each of the last few years, if they're the one that's throwing the haymakers, look out, this thing could get dicey. I think USC is going to get it done. I think they're playing their best football, and the performance last week is ultimately what changed my mind about the Trojans. I've liked them all year. I haven't loved them. Well, last week in particular, watching them stand up to and bottle up a Notre Dame rushing attack that had been averaging nearly 200 yards a game, to see them bottle that group up and kind of keep them contained led me feeling a whole heck of a lot better about USC in the front seven. Now is a different challenge. They have to contain a quarterback who is elite when it comes to scrambling and making plays with his legs and with his arm, and an elite tight end when it comes to creating separation. So a totally different approach when it comes to the quarterback, but not that different of approach when it comes to the tight end. Michael Mayer was that guy last week for Notre Dame. If you can apply some of the same principles you used last week to Dalton Kincaid, you might be able to have a little bit more success keeping him just a little bit more bottled up than you did last time. It won't be that hard. 16 for 234. That might be the opposite of being bottled up. So I think SC wins the game, but it's going to come down to the wire, and I expect it to be a great one on Friday night in Las Vegas.